Good afternoon. I'm Aisha Chugtai, and I'm the chair of the Budget Committee. I'm going to call to order our regular meeting for Monday, July 29th, 2024. Before we begin, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all council members, city staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville.
Present.
Vita.
Present.
Ellison is absent. Osman.
Present.
Cashman.
Present.
Jenkins is absent. Chavez.
Present.
Chowdhury.
Present.
Palmisano.
Present.
Vice Chair Koski.
Present.
Chair Chugtai.
Present.
There are 11 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. I'll also remind my colleagues that we're using speaker management today, so please make sure you sign in to be recognized to speak. We have 5 discussion items on our agenda today. Item number 1 is a presentation of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee 2024 annual report. I understand we are waiting for one of the members of the committee to join us so we can begin. So I will move ahead to item number 2 while we wait, and I'll recognize that Councilmember Ellison has joined us in this committee meeting. Item number 2 is the passage of ordinance related to the appointed position of Deputy Commissioner of Public Health Initiatives and Operations in the Health Department. I'll now invite Brenda Miller from Human Resources to begin that presentation.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Chugtai and members of the committee. I'm Brenda Miller, the Classification and Compensation Manager for the city. I'm bringing forward 2 items today. The first one is the Deputy Commissioner of Public Health Initiatives and Operations, which assists the Commissioner of Health in providing senior leadership, guidance, and strategic planning in all aspects of public health. The Deputy Commissioner has been evaluated at 703 points, grade 15. The 2024 schedule ranges from $154,000 to $182,000. and is effective June 27th of 2024. The incremental cost is covered in the 2024 and 2025 budget by department cost savings from unfilled positions. This position meets the criteria of Section 201010 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances because it reports to the Commissioner of Health. It's a member of the Public Health Management Team. It leads the development and implementation of city policies, goals, and strategic planning for the Public Health Department. It requires leadership, vision, team building, and strategy implementation. It establishes policies, goals, and strategies that are consistent with the goals and priorities established by the mayor, city council, and the public health commissioner. We are asking that you find that the Deputy Commissioner of Public Health Initiatives and Operations meets the appointed criteria as defined in Section 201010 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances and forwarded on to Council for final approval.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Miller. Any discussion or questions from the committee? I see Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was hoping before we took a roll call on the agenda that we could move item 5 up. Is that possible still?
Let's dispose of this item first and take action on it, and then we'll return back to that.
Thank you.
We wanted to begin with the presentation from the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee since we have community members joining us for that. Any other discussion from committee members? Seeing none, I will move approval of this item. Can I get a second?
Second.
This item has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Next, we will move to item number, do we have? Okay. Next, we will move to item number 5 as requested by Councilmember Rainville. I apologize for reordering the agenda, clerks and committee members. So that item is acceptance of a bid for the Minneapolis Convention Center Meeting Room Remodel Project. As this item has been discussed extensively by the body, I don't believe an additional presentation from staff is necessary, though we have the director of the Minneapolis Convention Center, Jeff Johnson, in the audience and is willing to answer any additional questions members may have. With that, do members have any questions for staff or any discussion before I move approval of the item? Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief thank you to Director Johnson. You've worked really hard on this project over years, and it's so important to keep that convention center competitive. The jobs creation, not only there, but those great union-paid jobs in the hotels. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the tax revenue as well. So thank you for all your work and dedication. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Johnson, for briefing all of the council members and getting a group together to discuss the importance of this project. And the convention center is in Ward 7. I know that the Loring Park community especially greatly benefits from all the visitors here. And I'll note that last week was a record-breaking hotel revenue week for Minneapolis, and this is really positive for the city. This convention center renovation project will help us stay competitive and attract more events like the U.S. Olympic trials that took place here, and that's really exciting to all of us. So I'm very happy to move approval of this item today. I know Budget Chair said she would move it as well, but I just wanted to offer that. And also just to note that, in the future, as we see more convention center budget items come through, I'm happy to be a point person for committee members who have questions and to continue working with you and your team to get as much information, into our LIMS files and in front of council members as possible to keep improving on transparency of these items. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rainville, would you like to second Councilmember Cashman's motion?
Yes, I second, please.
Wonderful. We'll continue with discussion. I'll recognize Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Chair Chuck Tai. I also want to thank Councilmember Cashman for her leadership on this issue. I was ready to not support this item, and I believe that this item was going to be voted down if it wasn't for Councilmember Cashman's leadership in bringing us to a meeting with the Convention Center and talking about how important this project is for Ward 7 and in downtown. So I just want to let the public know that Councilmember Cashman lifted a big finger on this project, and if it wasn't for her leadership, I wouldn't be voting for this, and I believe many people up here wouldn't either. So I am proud to support this and want to thank the leadership of Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further discussion, so on Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chuck Tai. I wanted to echo Councilmember Chavez. This was a very challenging discussion that really needed some of that technical expertise and collaboration that Councilmember Cashman brought to the conversation. I also want to thank Director Johnson. You kind of got caught in the middle of what was ultimately a decision between the body and the administration, and I apologize that you had to be in such a place, but I'm glad that we got to a good outcome.
Wonderful. With that, on the motion to approve this item, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. We'll now move to item number, we'll move back to item number 1 as it is published on our agenda, which is a presentation of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee 2024 Annual Report. I will invite the chairs of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee to begin that presentation. And it'll just take a minute as Budget Director DeSenza works to get that presentation up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My apologies for being late. I went over to City Hall, and I'm very persistent, so I tried several elevator banks before I finally talked to somebody and figured out I was in the wrong building, so apologies. Good afternoon. I'm John Bernstein, and I'm the chair of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee. I'm joined by Erica Mauter, who is the vice chair. I'm going to give a brief presentation highlighting the CLIC report, which was published a few weeks ago. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review that. When I'm finished, Eric and I would be happy to take questions. So let me start with a primer on CLIC. We're 33 members when we're fully staffed. Each of the council members has 2 appointees, and the mayor has 7. So this gives the committee geographical diversification across the city. There's sort of an unwritten rule that it's okay to advocate for the ward a member represents, but all members should also be thinking about and acting upon what is best for the city overall. We're a citizen advisory committee, so our recommendations are non-binding. CLIC considers and prioritizes capital budget requests, better known as CBRs, and those are submitted by a variety of city departments. CLIC does not originate or propose capital projects. Having said that, there are times when we get public input from the public, and we suggest that the city consider a project that was not among those that we saw. So this year, we reviewed 133 projects and ranked them. And those projects totaled $935 million in various forms of city funding. We're recommending about $743 million, and that's over the current 6-year window, which is from 2025 to 2030. This year, we're recommending a very large increase to the net debt bond budget, which is a meaningful change from anything we've done in the past. The reason for this is the committee believes that the city is having difficulty maintaining its current infrastructure at acceptable levels. We believe this is the case for all of the city's infrastructure, but we're going to use the condition of city streets to illustrate the issue. So this chart shows the average pavement condition index, better known as PCI, going back 30 years for the city. As you can see, in the early 1990s, the average PCI was in the low 80s. By the 2010s, that had dropped to the low 70s, and the city tried to address it with the Streets and Parks Infrastructure Ordinance that was passed back in 2016. Now, 8 years into the funding from that ordinance, PCI stands in the low 60s. So, again, this is just an example to illustrate an issue that we think is going on more broadly with infrastructure in the city. But as a result of this, we asked the Finance Department to provide information about the maximum amount of net debt bond money that could be raised each year without touching the property tax levy. That's out of our purview as CLIC, so we tried to stay away from that. So let me run through some numbers for you. So for reference, these are the net debt bond recommendations that CLIC made a year ago. And 2030 is blank, of course, because that was not part of the 6-year window a year ago. These are the maximum levels that the Finance Department came back to us with. And this line shows you that difference. So if you look at the total, you can see we're looking at pretty close to a 50% increase at the maximum. So these are our recommendations for 2024. This is the difference between what we are recommending and what the maximum levels are. And you can see there's some years where we're slightly under the maximum, and there's some years where we're over the maximum. And the reason for that is because from a planning and budgeting perspective, particularly with these large capital projects, it's always been the case, and I think it's easier if the net debt bond levels over the 6-year window are either flat or slightly increasing. So that's what we were trying to achieve. So to help with that, you'll note in the total line that we're about 21 million under the total. And that's because these maximum levels, there's a lot of different reasons in any given year why the level is where it's at. And so what we're recommending may or may not work from that perspective, but to try to help give some flexibility to the finance department, we tried to come under by a decent amount of money so that they would be able to work with this. One final issue that I want to mention to the City Council that is a little separate from what I just went over is an issue we're having with the Park Board with respect to the CLIC process. As you all well know, there's a set amount of money that the Park Board gets as a result of the Park and Streets Capital Infrastructure Ordinance that was passed back in 2016. And magically, the Park Board submits to us projects that exactly equal that amount of money that they're going to receive. So in effect, they circumvent the process and don't give us a chance to actually make recommendations about what projects we think are good or bad. We've been asking them now for several years to change that process and give us something like 125% or 130% of what their funding levels are, so we can actually make some recommendations around that. Continues to be an issue, so I just wanted to highlight it here to the extent that you're able to encourage a different methodology from them. That would be good. And I would say, you know, I don't want to sound too adversarial about this. There's other ways where the Park Board is really leading the city on the way it's doing parts of this process. The area that I would highlight is equity. They have a very, very clear method around how they do it, and they're very transparent about how that works. And if somebody on CLIC or in the public has a question as to why a park is scheduled where it is or why it changes from what they did a year ago, they have a very clear, transparent answer to that as a result of that method they're using. So this is an issue we're having with them, but there are other areas where they do very well. So with that, Eric and I would be happy to take your questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Chair Bernstein and Vice Chair Motter. Any questions or discussion from the committee? I'll first recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering if you could come back to this pavement condition index. I found it really surprising, the drop in quality here, and I'm wondering if you have an explanation for that, kind of based on 2017 to 2021 drop in quality.
I mean, that's probably a better question for the Public Works Department, but I think it's fair to say, I've heard lots of different things. If you look at it longer term, I think some people would attribute some of the drop to the change in LGA that occurred back in the early 2000s, local government funding from the state. People have suggested things like climate change and, you know, more freezes and thaws in the winter. I'm not disputing that, but I would say this is a 30-year trend, so I don't know that that explains what's happening more recently. I think the bottom line is that the city's infrastructure is aging, and as that occurs, more money needs to get allocated to keep these resources, you know, at a level that's acceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Vice President Chuck Tai. Thank you so much, CLIC members or board members, for being here. I had a question actually in regards to the 2023 report of recommendations that you made and seeing if there was any of those recommendations taken into account for 2024, specifically about our precinct stations, with the recommendation back in 2023 saying, you know, at that time it seemed to be a lack of a strategic plan as it, you know, accounted for our direction when it came to not only public safety, but how that also factors into our physical assets like precincts. Since then, we have now transitioned, at least starting with the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, which you all recommended to, the exploration of co-location of, you know, our services like BCR with, you know, other maybe law enforcement components. The South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, you know, plans to do that, but we are still, as part of our capital program, we still have several precincts in their traditional model that's factored in, and wanted to see if MPD or OCS met with you all to take that into account for how we're re-envisioning our capital program around precincts and the transitioning into a safety center model.
I just first want to highlight that posture towards the MPD budget is something that the committee spent a lot of time over several years coming to consensus on. And the conversation we found ourselves in this year is, like, the reality was the capital budget requests were still lacking quite a bit of detail. And so we were hopeful, we were expecting to see actually more specific direction from MPD, given the consent decrees, et cetera. And we weren't provided with information to actually make a judgment. And so the place we found ourselves in was not really having enough information still to make a recommendation either way. And in particular, one of the things we would have liked to see is how plans for these, but like we got a vision, but not like a concrete plan. And we didn't have an accounting of how the plans for any precinct building were speaking to or addressing the concerns raised in the consent decrees. So we basically found ourselves still just having not quite enough information to understand if the projects as they were proposed were going to actually meet the requirements that MPD says they have.
Okay, I will do some follow-up on that, but thank you for providing, that answer.
Thank you. And next, I'll recognize Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today. I'm grateful to see you both and appreciate the information. And, I'm just going through the report. Apologize that I did not read it ahead of time. But I just want to note for the public, and we will make sure that they have this, the information that we got today is a pretty narrowed down version of all the cumulative work that you guys have put into this. And so I guess and maybe it's a miscommunication between us and you, and this is the first time we've had you guys come to present, but I would have loved to have even more detailed information. I mean, I think the expertise, obviously there are 7 individuals that are appointed by the mayor, and then each of us have individuals that we've selected to be here, and I know that you guys can represent the entire clique on those recommendations. So if there are other highlights, I'm reading through this quickly here, and I know you probably don't have them up on slides, but I would love to just give you the floor here. If there are other highlights that you would like to talk about, I would love to hear a little bit more in detail, maybe some of the conversations that you guys have had or some things that have really risen up that you want us to know and make sure that we're thinking about when we go through the budget process. So.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. And we'll consider that for next year's presentation, maybe a little more about who's on the committee and what kind of expertise everyone is bringing. Truth be told, when the finance department came back and said, you actually have a lot more money to spend, it really very much dramatically changed the nature of the conversations that we had as a committee. And kind of where we lay. So ordinarily, kind of to John's point about the park board projects, and if we get exactly the budgeted amount, then there's no ranking for us really to do. They're all just going to happen. And we find ourselves in a place where we actually could allocate funds to almost everything. And so that changed the conversation towards, we can see some of these projects that are actually creating more infrastructure in a way. And so those actually might not be good recommendations because we're sort of exacerbating the problem we're having keeping up with the infrastructure that we have. So that was kind of one major discussion point. As I said before about MPD, that was a major discussion point and has been for several years running. Those are the 2 highlights I would hit. I would say the third thing I would raise is we've seen steady improvement, but we continue to ask departments to bring to us, knowing that projects are designed to not just maintain the infrastructure we have, but move us towards city policy and goals that exist in our transportation action plan, our climate goals, et cetera, being able to tell us very specific, it asks in the CBR, but we don't always get the actual concrete information about how these projects are advancing us towards meeting those policy goals, either on an individual basis or on a collective basis. So one thing we've talked about a number of times is like ADA ramps. Is there somewhere where someone has a cross-cutting inventory of our progress on updating all the ADA ramps? We know that ADA ramps are addressed as much as possible in ongoing projects, but whose job is it to have accounts across all projects across the whole city of how we're doing on that? Same thing, the cumulative effects of sidewalk and bike projects, the cumulative effects of street reconstruction, et cetera. The much of what we asked for, we raised this in our conversation with the mayor as well, is helping us actually track if city policy states our goals are measured in vehicle miles traveled or whatever those things are, help us connect how the projects you're proposing are advancing us specifically toward those goals in those metrics.
Yeah, I would just add that, we really try to stay out of policy since that's not our purview. So we're very focused on what Erica just said. The policy is set by you guys in whatever the long-range plan is and how the projects that are presented to us do or do not meet those policies. And sometimes the information that we get is not always as robust as we'd like it to be to deal with that. To Council Member Wansley's question about police precincts, that's probably a great example. And, to be fair, this is a difficult process, right? You're trying to plan a $50 million building 6 years out. It starts as a dream and a vision. So one of the things we actually suggested is, instead of coming to us and asking us to approve $50 million to build this building that is a vision, and you don't even know where you're going to build it, ask us for $250,000 to do a study and come back to us with some information that's a little more concrete or something like that. Yeah, I guess that's, we're trying to keep this big picture for you guys. There's lots of minute details. I would reinforce what Erica said about if you choose to adopt this recommendation that we're suggesting, which is roughly a 50% increase to the net debt bond budget, it's really important that incremental increase not get used for new infrastructure. Of course, new infrastructure has to be built in certain cases, but that incremental increase is intended to help maintain the existing infrastructure. And if you use it to build more infrastructure, you're just making the problem worse instead of better. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Koski. Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did want to ask a little bit about the equity considerations that you use, since you also brought up the park board's process. And from my review of the report, you reviewed and ranked 133 projects this year, recommending projects which total $743 million in city funds over a 6-year window from 2025 to 2030. This is a very, large, extensive, long-term investment. And can you share about the range of the types of projects that you recommended, and then also how you used an equity framework to rank them in your decision-making process?
Sure. So the capital infrastructure budget the vast majority of it is public works. So that is streets, bridges, sewer, both sanitary and storm sewer. It is other modes of travel. So it's bike lanes, it's sidewalks, it's safe routes to school. It is park capital, so that's buildings, that's parkways. How we fund and maintain parkways is sort of a fraud issue as well. And it includes MPD, fire, their capital needs, et cetera. And I might be forgetting off the top of my head what some of the rest of them are. But it's buildings and roads and bridges in big pipes under the ground. The CLIC ranking system, it has kind of 3 chunks to it. So one of them is just is how a given project meets or supports city goals. So is it critical infrastructure? Like, is someone's going to die? Is someone going to die if this project doesn't happen? All the way through, this is very nice to have, et cetera. There is a section that is just the planning, so projects get more points for being in the plan longer. So if you told us, this year, that 6 years from now you want to do a building, then you're going to get more points in the process for that. So it weights planning ahead versus trying to get stuff done at the last minute. And then the third part is a handful of subjective things that each click member, so each click member does rank all these projects, right? So this subjective section is based on, there is an equity line in particular. There is how does it contribute to culture neighborhoods. There's a couple other things that I'm totally spacing on right now, but there's a subjective section. Does it, what does it do for climate, et cetera? So so some of those things are baked in structurally in the project, but there's also, each individual gets to be like, yes, I think this does or does not meet these criteria. We do rely to a degree on what is presented to us in the CBR and in the presentations that we receive about the equity implications of a project. Most departments use similar measures to make those determinations. A lot of projects don't come with that information. And so that is really just where the wisdom and lived experience of committee members comes in. It's very much to our benefit to have people who live all around the city, who have firsthand experience with not only the impact a project is going to have in their neighborhood, but sort of the story of how this project has or has not come to fruition and what the implications of that are as well. And so, there's a handful of kind of fraught projects that have been dragged out for quite some time without advancement, and there's a lot of both committee member sort of experience with that, as well as community kind of stories we hear about that. But it is, and some committee members have professional experience doing this work as well. So it is that sort of sum total, everybody's collective brain and experience that contributes to how we understand the actual impacts of the projects.
Thanks, that's really helpful.
I would just add that the scoring metrics that we use are at the back of the CLIC report as an appendix under the capital guidelines. There should be a page in there that will detail what Erica was just explaining.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll note that Councilmember Jenkins has joined us in this meeting and recognize her for discussion or comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Ms. Mauder, I'm wondering, do you know if there is a alley improvement program in the CLIC process, and where is it in the process, if so?
Yes, I think there's actually two separate projects related to alley repair. Those are, as I understand it, I think there's one that's like one-off projects, and there's one that's a program that just allocates a certain amount of money every year for Public Works to use on emergent or ongoing alley projects. Mm-hmm. It's sort of akin to street asphalt repaving, to concrete reconstruction, et cetera. They aren't particularly large dollar. I mean, this is capital, so it's relative. They aren't like particularly large dollar projects, probably in the several $100,000 a year range that those projects are recommended for funding. What we've heard anecdotally is that in some, there are a handful of corners of the city where alleys are not paved, and to do so is less straightforward than one would think. For example, it abuts a railroad, or it's very particular to the specific kind of how that actual street, how that actual alley is situated relative to everything around it. And sometimes residents don't actually want the alley paved. It's also partially paid by assessment. And so if folks are not excited to be assessed to have their alley paved when it's working just fine the way it is, then sometimes that will not move forward that way. But there are provisions in the capital budget for alley paving. And as I understand it, if there are particular alleys in question, mm-hmm. that requests from council members will be welcome from Public Works.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Part of it is a sort of a big conceptual problem with what we do, right? I mean, you're comparing all of the 133 different projects. So you got a new fire department that needs to be built, or excuse me, a new fire station that needs to be built, and a bridge that needs to be built, and an alley that needs to be repaved. on a relative basis, when you're looking at importance, the alley needing to be repaved always falls down to the bottom, right? It's just the nature of how this kind of works. And, repaving an alley is a little bit like redoing your roof, right? Nobody's excited to spend money to redo a roof. You're not all excited and go out and admire the roof when it's done. It sort of falls into that same category. It's a necessary thing that is not, nobody gets excited about.
Any additional questions? Wonderful, thank you. I put myself in queue. I wanted to first thank the both of you for coming in to present this information to us. I have gotten to know the two Ward 10 appointees on Click, Katie Jones and Will Woodworth, really well, and have gained some visibility into just the amount of work it is to be a member of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee as you work every year to rank the projects to understand the projects and the requests that are coming before you, and then rank them and build consensus around that, and then make those recommendations to the mayor, and then eventually to the council in the form of the recommended budget. I think a goal in bringing you here to present before us today is the interest from this body to have a deeper relationship and connection to Click. You're just in your presentation today, you talked about $743 million worth of projects in this upcoming 6-year window that you looked at. And in the context of the city's overall operating budget, that's pretty significant, right? That's like 40%. Just for comparison, just for comparison. So we want to develop a better understanding of the thought process that goes into the projects you consider, the ones that end up making their way to the top of the list, why not, and just be in alignment with you on how you're making those recommendations. So just wanted to thank you for your presentation today, and hope that we'll continue to do this, hopefully in greater detail in future years, where we're really getting into the projects that you are recommending, and really understanding why the ones you didn't end up recommending, what the thought process was there.
Thank you. Yeah, this presentation to the Budget Committee is something that used to happen years ago. I've been on Click for longer than I'll admit here. Maybe Councilmember Palmisano remembers that. I think she'd probably be the only one here that would go back far enough to remember that. So we're trying to reestablish that, and we're glad that you have the same interest. I would just share that over the years that I've been on Click, I've always offered to my appointing authority to do a meeting with them and go over my view of the report. And I would encourage all of you, if you have that interest, to reach out to your appointees and ask that of them. And I would also offer that if any of you are interested in an individual meeting, I'm certainly willing to do that, or field more questions in a different setting. And I won't speak for Erica, but
I'll just add that feedback is welcome on what would be helpful for us to bring next year.
Awesome. I am not seeing any further questions or discussion, so I'll thank you for your time today, and I will ask the clerk to file that report. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We will now move to discussion item number 3 as published on the agenda, which is the passage of ordinance related to the appointed position of Director of Police Conduct Review in the Civil Rights Department. I'll welcome back Brenda Miller from the Human Resources Department to give that presentation.
Thank you, Chair Chugtai. I'm here to present the second of the 2 appointed positions. This one is the Director of Police Conduct Review, which reports to the Civil Rights Director. It provides independent oversight and accountability and fair handling of public complaints, as well as allegations of misconduct or wrongdoing by law enforcement officers. The Director of Police Conduct Review was previously approved in 2013 at 545 points, grade 12. It's been reevaluated at 643 points, grade 14. The 2024 salary schedule ranges from about $140,000 up to $166,000. In 2024, the annualized cost of base salary, benefits, and fringe is about $200,000. The 2024 incremental cost is in the 2024 budget as well as 2025 budget through cost savings in the department, and changes are effective August 1st of 2024. This position meets the criteria of Section 201010 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances. It reports to the Director of Civil Rights. It's a member of the Civil Rights Executive Management Team. It participates in the development and implementation of city policy, goals, and strategic planning for the Civil Rights Department. And lastly, it establishes policies, goals, and strategies that are consistent with the goals and priorities established by the Mayor, City Council, and the Civil Rights Director. We're asking that you find the Director of Police Conduct Review meets the appointed criteria as defined in Section 201010 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances and forward it on to Council for final approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Miller. Is there any discussion or any questions from the committee? I am not seeing any. With that, I will move approval of this item. Can I get a second?
Second.
This item has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will move to discussion item number 4, which is the passage of resolution amending the 2024 General Appropriation Resolution to designate funds for 2024 violence prevention strategies. This resolution is from Councilmember Wansley and Councilmember Chavez. So I'll first recognize Councilmember Wansley to speak to the item.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Colleagues, I know many of us were alerted either by our constituents or Chief O'Hara himself just this weekend about, the uptick in violence that we saw. And many of us are also aware that we saw similar trends earlier this month with upticks in violence that resulted in the loss of life for several residents across the city. And what is most disheartening about this is just 2 months ago, myself and a number of colleagues on the Public Health and Safety Committee expressed concerns about the city's seeming subpar summer safety plans upon receiving a presentation from OCS where we learned that MPD's summer safety operations would not be slated to start until actually today, July 29th. And we also learned that our violence prevention partners had not been engaged about our summer strategies for a number of weeks as well, or months. And we really, in response to those concerns, felt that it was timely to bring what you're being asked to consider. And just a little bit more context on, why we're bringing this item forward. Earlier this year, Councilmember Chavez and I asked Commissioner Barnett to come to the Public Health and Safety Committee to present information related to the city's 2024 summer plan. I think we widely know that there are unique public safety challenges that often arise during the summer. And as leadership of the PHS committee, Chair Chavez and I wanted to ensure that the administration was being proactive about investing in comprehensive strategies and violence prevention, intervention, and restorative services for this summer, and to let the public know and assure them that, we had things in place. Commissioner Barnett and other departments under OCS presented at the May 15th PHS committee, and during that presentation, Commissioner Barnett shared a list of programming under the heading 2024 Summer Safety Strategies. Following the May 15th presentation, Councilmember Chavez and I was invited to attend 2 listening sessions that some of our violence prevention partners partners hosted. And at those sessions, we learned that there were some important things that were missing from that OCS presentation, specifically information that our violence prevention leaders would have loved to share with OCS and the administration at large around how to better plan for this summer, but no one had asked them for their expertise. Also, some were surprised to see several of their events be listed as prevention strategies because those were events that were actually community-based events and were not paid or sponsored by the city. And again, most importantly, these groups had crucial insights on how we could decrease violence this summer, but were not engaged. And I do want to highlight that, these partners are working directly with many young people and adults who are at risk of either committing violence or being victims of violence themselves. And that was articulated at that June 5th PHS meeting. And with that, these groups have on-the-ground perspectives that should be used to inform the creation of any violence prevention plan. After attending those 2 listening sessions, CM Chavez and I invited some of the groups to our June 5th Public Health and Safety meeting to speak and share their perspectives on, again, how the city could enhance safety for our communities over the summer. And if you have not watched that presentation, I know we sent an email out about it. I strongly encourage you to. And since that presentation, or since early June, I know my office alongside Councilmember Chavez have had several meetings where we've attempted to work with Commissioner Barnett as well as other city staff like the city attorney's office to address the concerns that were identified by our violence prevention partners. And one solution that we identified was to devote a modest amount of funding to support safety initiatives that will help support violence prevention efforts for neighborhoods across the city for the remainder of the summer. And to that end, this resolution is earmarking uncommitted funds within the neighborhood safety department's budget to further address violent prevention strategies. This appropriation does not ensure any specific group gets access to funding, nor does it specify how many groups will have access to it. We are bringing this appropriation forward because it's important for the public and for the administration to know that this body takes this work seriously. We're constantly hearing those concerns from our constituents every, single day, be it in my ward around Dinky Town and some of the upticks we've seen there. I've heard from my colleagues about their experiences that they're seeing in their communities as well, and a frustration of not seeing the resources be devoted that's necessary to really address those concerns. So we want to show at least the public and our partners that, through this appropriation that we are aware of, the deficiencies and shortcomings with the way in which we approach this summer. And we still have a month and a half left. We want to be able to support partners that are doing that on the groundwork to make our community safe. And this is a reflection of that. So with that, I will also pass it to Councilmember Chavez if he has any questions.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Wansley. Councilmember Chavez, would you like to be recognized to offer any additional comments?
Thank you, Chair Chugtai. Yes. Chair Chugtai, I'm glad to bring this 2024 Summer Safety Violence Prevention Strategy study forward with Councilmember Wansley to help get violence prevention programming this summer to enhance the public safety needs in our city, especially in areas that are historically harmed by violence. This is also in alignment with the multiple conversations I've had with my residents, in particular with Lillian's family, a resident in my ward who was shot and killed while she was with her baby in her car. I've been meeting with her family and the Latino community who has been asking me to push for more safety funding this summer to help prevent this from happening ever again. And it's clear that our communities are in dire need of increased community safety efforts and violence prevention. And I hope that this funding can make sure that the Office of Community Safety takes this seriously. At a time when we are hearing about capacity issues, needs, and priorities, I believe that addressing community safety and violence prevention must be a priority and that it is a critical need. And I believe that my residents agreed. And with that, Chair Chugtai, I am voting in favor of this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez for adding those additional comments. There are several colleagues in queue. I put myself in as well because I wanted to just ask a couple of quick clarifying questions of you, Councilmember Wansley, if you'll take them, that I think others may have too, and can provide some clarity as we continue with discussion. I really appreciate you bringing this item forward and sharing additional context with the committee. I'm not a member of the Public Health and Safety Committee, so I know some of the origins of this item come from discussion items and public comment periods that have been held in Public Health and Safety. My first question is this allocation that is, allocated within the existing neighborhood safety department budget, so it's not new money or money moving from an existing place to another one. But is this dollar amount, quote unquote, earmarked for any specific organization?
No, so if you see in the RCA and also in the resolution itself, it doesn't specify any specific organizations that will receive that. That's within the administration's authority. We can't direct what groups get what. So what we can do is make earmarks or appropriations, and that's what we're doing within our authority.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know we have a robust process around contracting resources that have to go through a public process, and so I just wanted to make sure that was really clear to all of us here today. My second question is, since you're appropriating the money in the 2024 budget year, and the resolution itself does not specify that it's for summer safety specifically, I know summer's almost gone now. Can you just clarify if the money can be used at any point throughout this year up until December 31st, 2024?
Yeah. So, of course, based off of the work that we've done in PHS, we're emphasizing we want to support strategies that still support violence prevention efforts throughout the remaining, time of the summer. But per our financial policies, I think people are aware that, if those funds are not allocated via department, they stick with them to the end of the year and then go back to the general budget. So those are still available, for the rest of the year.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did ask some similar questions as me. Thank you, Councilmember Wansley, for this proposal. I think all of us can be in agreement that violence prevention strategies are a crucial piece of our unarmed public safety services, and I understand that violence interrupters were being dispatched to specific areas to help prevent even more issues, even just this past weekend. And to point out, being responsive is quite different than some of what Councilmember Wansley used in her explanation of this, which is being preventive. That said, I'm pleased to see an opportunity for agile response here. It was strange to me that it's a very specific dollar amount, $533,473. Councilmember Wansley just indicated to Chair Chugtai, that these were not budgeted specifically, meaning that they're unobligated, or are these funds that are simply unspent? I'm curious about if I was a little bit unclear as to that.
Councilmember Wansley, would you like to address Councilmember Palmisano's question?
Yes, and correct me, I feel like I might be hearing two separate things. So how we landed on the amount, as I mentioned, is we did, the listening sessions, and based off of that, we felt close to $500,000 would be pretty sufficient in supporting the work that was identified in terms of those meetings that we had. In terms of the funding source, though, when we connected with budget in May, we were alerted that NSD had about $5 million of uncommitted dollars. So that is where we identified the funding source for that $500,000 total.
Okay, so uncommitted to me means unobligated,
Yes,
same
correct
type of thing. And you indicated that there was a sense of what this will be for, that it was roughly $500,000 of something for a specific program, or can you tell me what this $533,000 $5,473, I think, would be specifically used for then by the end of the year?
So the tagline in the RCA is for summer safety strategies for 2024. Yeah.
Right, but can you be any more specific? Did anything come from these listening sessions, which I was not able to attend, that might more specifically say what that would be for? Is it to do violence prevention through community partners? There are some community partners present today. I want to acknowledge you in the crowd. I'm wondering what the impact of this extra funding would be able to do.
Yeah, so what was shared with us in that June 5th PHS meeting, which I encourage, again, everyone to watch, what we heard was, again, this can go to supporting the expansion of work done with young people who are either predisposed at being, involved in violence or victims of violence themselves. This could also support, additions of community patrols, which we're constantly hearing. There seems to be a shortage across, areas where we're seeing these specific upticks across the city. So a lot of this is, again, within whatever the scope of work that is guided by the CAO's office and NSD, making sure that it stays within those parameters of what is legal and what is already within the terms of violence prevention work that many of our groups do.
Thank you. Chair Chugtai, I was curious, just in general, and I see we have Commissioner Barnett here, is there something specifically that we will not be doing? Because by appropriating this money to this specific cause or use, is there something that our neighborhood safety department then would not be able to achieve that they were planning to otherwise use this money for? I think it has been answered by Councilmember Wansley, but I just was curious if staff had any other thoughts that they wanted to share about it.
Councilmember Palmisano, I think you just touched on it. It was answered earlier, but I just want to reiterate, this is not money being taken from a different use currently assigned within neighborhood safety into this specific use. It is, it's earmarking within the neighborhood safety department budget out of their unassigned budget for the year.
Right, and early in my time on council, I suggested an appropriation within a department, within their budget, and was resoundingly told that department budgets are fragile and I needed to let them use it for their own operations. I hope that's not the case here, but we adopted the 2024 budget back in December, and I'm curious, are there any legal concerns with this appropriation? Is this allowable as a council action, is what I'm curious, and maybe this is a question for the city attorney.
Sure. City Attorney Nielsen, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you. Councilmember Palmisano, Vice President Chugtai. The council has the authority to amend the general appropriation resolution. That move or that earmark of money is done at the department level overall. They don't have the authority, as has been stated, to go below that level and dictate specific groups or contracts that will receive the money or contracts that should be increased. The practical effect is that this money will be tied up for the rest of the year unless or until the executive administration sees fit, sees a need, and brings forth proposals to use the money. If they don't, and they don't have to, they're not compelled to, the money can sit there. It's going to be tied up for the remainder of the year.
So thank you. I think that answers my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Chair Chugtai. I did watch the June 5th committee meeting because I had heard, kind of in the community, that there was going to be some presentations by groups around how they could expand their work for the summer. And I would just say, in my observation of that June 5th committee meeting, it really felt like community members came in to present to the committee, and they were being pit against the department as a whole. It felt very combative to me. It did not feel like, people were prepared and ready for coming before the committee and presenting in a lighthearted kind of, there's some additional money in this department kind of way. Now, because I felt that, I reached out to several groups to meet with them and talk through what their specific needs were for this funding, and I had some really good meetings. I met with Westbury, I met with Urban Conservation, which is for Rome, I met with Restoration Inc. I had a really great meeting with Restoration Inc. I met with CEO, Change Equals Opportunity, I think is the acronym. Jamil Jackson, had great conversations. And I'm supportive. I understand now, like, what the specifics are for people, what they're going to be doing in the community, on the ground, whether that's in partnership or collaboration with other people. I had a great meeting with Ferrome and West about GVI and the impact, and they shared lots of good data with me on, the impact they're having not only with adults but the family as a whole. And so that is that feels good. That feels good. I understood early on and the day of that presentation that they were going to be needing additional funding for that work. But I think what I'm hearing here today is that the money isn't going necessarily to the groups that presented, but it's just kind of going in the pile. Councilmember Wansley?
Councilmember Wansley, would you like to address that question?
So per appropriation guidelines, as the city attorney just highlighted, council can't direct the money towards any specific group. What we can do is do an appropriation or an earmark, and yes, encourage, as we've been doing for the past 2 months now in our conversations with the administration, to support partners who would like to show up and do violence prevention work for this summer. That is within our authority, and that's what this resolution reflects.
So they'll have to reapply for this money again? I mean, I'm really trying to understand how this is going to work, because I watched that meeting and there were very specific groups that came in and had very specific dollar ask to extend their summer work. So I'm trying to understand what we're doing here, because I had some great meetings. Phenomenal work is being done. It's getting better for me, and so I'm really trying to understand what we're doing here.
Councilmember Vita, that's a really excellent question. For groups, now, once this money is appropriated, right, like, let's say this item is approved today, it's approved on Thursday, signed by the mayor. Once the money is appropriated, the Office of Community Safety and the Neighborhood Safety Department have several options in front of them. If they want to increase a contract for an organization the city has an existing contract with, there's a process that exists for that includes amending their existing contract. If it's above a certain dollar value, that comes before the council for final approval. The administration may want to engage in a new process altogether to contract with a new organization that isn't existing right now. And so they would go through a request for proposal process and then bring that in front of us for approval.
Okay, so I'm going to end with this. I feel like this has given a sense of false hope to the people who came to the meeting and presented their budget and said, if you give us an additional $75,000, I mean, people were very specific on what their needs were, how much money they needed to meet those needs. And I just feel like this process is not giving them that. This process is really saying, here is this $533,000, and we hope that you get selected somehow in this process. This does not guarantee that the folks who have shown up, whether it's in North Minneapolis or South Minneapolis, and did the work and said, I could use this to help with that. I mean, I'm going to give specifics, because GVI and why GVI is what I talk the most about in this. And so, do we say to, do they come back? And we have to, figure out a way to give them some specifics, because we don't want these groups to go without the funding they need to make the work happen. And this process ain't it. This process is here you go, somebody. but not really the people who have come here and said, I need X, Y, and Z. I mean, I feel like I say false hope too much. Like, I feel like I'm like my great-grandfather or somebody at this point with using that language. But it does. It feels like we've said to people, show up, present, tell us what you need. Okay, we're going to vote on it. Because, again, I'm supportive of this. But we hope that the administration figures out a way to help you meet that need. I don't think that's fair.
Councilmember, this is going as far as we can within our authority, right? We have the authority to appropriate money. We have the authority to set policy direction, but that's as far as we can go. The next step from here would be working with the Office of Community Safety to actually get that money into the community just the way that you're describing. I think it is a shared goal that happens. And to that end, I think Councilmember Wansley would love to work with you in her continued efforts in working with the Office of Community Safety to make sure this money gets out as soon as possible.
I just want to be clear. I have no doubt that the money is going to get out. What I'm questioning is get out to whom and when, because I've seen these processes turn into an RFP process, right? That's probably 2025 if that happens. We've done our part after we take this vote. There's no way to guarantee that this won't turn into a full-on, unless you all know something, I don't know. But what I know is these processes can take a long time. There can be a whole new program developed behind this. This can take forever. And it's just challenging because like I said, I met with several groups who really, they really made the case for needing this money, and I think there should be support for them to receive this money.
Thank you for your comments and questions. Next, I will recognize Councilmember Osman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize if my voice sound different. I had a long flight. My ears are popped. So I got a few things to say. What is the summer safety plan? I don't think there's any summer safety plan. I'm really disappointed, very, very disappointed. Neighborhood Safety Department, the administration. About a month ago, I met the commissioner, Mayor Jacob. Sat down with them. I told them a specific issue in my ward. And I say, something bad can happen here. It was under Franklin and Hiawatha, under the bridge. 6 people were shot a few weeks ago. No plan, no nothing. What do we need to do for your departments to keep our residents safe? Councilmember Wansley and other council members are doing everything they can to give you the tools to keep our community safe. Here on my phone, I have Inspector Gomez. Every day there's an email, incident report, incident report, incident report. There is no safety plan. The administration and the neighborhood safety departments are failing our residents. I'm here to help as a council member. And the power I have is to approve the budget and give you the tools to keep our community safe. The specific issue in my ward, the same location that 50, 80 people are standing and hanging out. Live drugs, all kind of things that are happening on Franklin. We don't have the crime prevention team over there. We don't have the, the wonderful guys over here with the orange shirts or yellow shirts. There's no plan in that Franklin and Chicago. The county is failing, the MnDOT is failing, the city of Minneapolis is failing. The CEO was there, that meeting that I had with you, Commissioner, and the Mayor. I asked you specifically, this is the place that needs attention. 6 people were shot. And now something bad can happen over and over and again. So we can talk about this summer safety plan. There is no summer safety plan. I can't direct the police chief to say, hey, do something here. I can't direct your department to tell you the only tool I have as a council member to keep my residents safe is the budget, through the budget. So what tools can I give you to keep our community safe for this summer. The crime prevention team, the Touch Outreach, the Metro Youth, and all the others ones have proven they have worked. I've been here 4 years. During the civil unrest, everything that was there, this topic of crime prevention or alternative policing was very popular. This was something that we worked on. We brought Lake Street and the Riverside, finally, crime prevention teams. We can see the data, we can see the report that they have worked. A couple months ago, we were arguing they're not getting paid. So somebody is failing. They're not getting paid. The small things that are working for our neighborhood. So I am frustrated. And I'm calling out for the Department of Public Safety and the Mayor's administration to keep our community safe. We here as a council member, especially me speaking myself, I'm here to help you, to work with you, but I'm crying for help. I really need help for my residents, Seward neighborhood, for my residents of Ventura Village, to keep them safe. It's not safe. People live there, I live there, we raise families. We want to make sure we are doing what we're supposed to do. And as a council members, we have allocated enough money for your department. But the safety plan, the safety is not changing, it's getting worse. So I do support this plan, and I hope your department gets the, the tools that we can provide you to put the RFP to make sure that we are rewarding and hiring these wonderful guys that put their lives and to talk to the resident to build that relationship with them. Last week, I believe they had a couple of weeks ago, they had a crime prevention event where young people were coming playing basketball. That's what we need. We need community, to work with the community. So we shouldn't be arguing on the diocese of the fact that they haven't got paid or is the RFE getting to them, and it's not an excuse that you don't have the capacity. It's not. It's people's lives are on the line. So I do need help from the administration, from public safety, neighborhood safety department, and the administration, and the chief of police and others to help my community. Thank you.
Next, I'll recognize Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the additional context to my colleagues. We had our budget agenda setting committee meeting last week, and we had several questions around this. And so this has been helpful to understand the perspective of council members, and hearing what I'm hearing is a pretty big disconnect, and hence why this action is taking place today. But I do think it would be helpful. I know Councilmember Palmisano sort of asked this, but I didn't see the commissioner come up. And I think it would be helpful to have your perspective, Commissioner, about this motion that's before us. In that agenda setting meeting, we were told that there was, funding that you guys could continue to allocate already. And so I think it would be helpful to hear your perspective, understanding where we are at right now with funding, and then also to really understand the impact of this on the neighborhood safety department. If we were to reallocate, I understand it's very clear to me that we are earmarking the funding, so it's all coming within the same pot. But I want to know, what are we gaining or losing or from this shift of funding with this move? So thank you for coming up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Vice President Chuck Ty, President Payne, other council members, Council Member Koski. First, Council Member Palmisano, I didn't know if you were inviting me up or was just asking about staff. So in the future, if any of you want me to talk, just invite me up. Say, come up. I'm not too sure if you were just having a discussion or you wanted my opinion. So, getting straight to the point here, this resolution would earmark money to neighborhood safety. We would determine how it would be spent, how much inflexibility or flexibility we have, because if this resolution is approved, depends on how much money, as we move on through this budget, through this year, is still unobligated. I don't have that number right now, but if this money is earmarked, if we don't have funds to do other things, we wouldn't be able to touch this money. So if another organization has an emergency and we have if we have unobligated funds that we can give to them, fantastic. If we don't, that money sits there and we wouldn't be able to help that other organization. So all I'm saying about this is you're earmarking this money specifically for a purpose, which is totally within your authority, but I don't think we could move that money to help a different contractor that we might have in neighborhood safety.
Okay, so maybe can you help me understand, you don't know the amount of unobligated funding that you have?
All I'm
or-
saying is, I heard that Councilmember Wansley, and I can't dispute it. I would assume that it's true. She said in May there was $5 million that was unobligated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking that as being true. All I'm saying is I did not look at that number. If there's $5 million that's not obligated, and you're talking about $500,000 here, that doesn't seem to have a huge impact.
And then I would ask, I do see our CFO and our budget director are here, and if they could help maybe phone a friend.
That is fine.
Help us understand, I just want to be clear here. I want to support these organizations. I want to make sure that we are getting the funds. I think Councilmember Vita said it in a way that I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver here. And by, earmarking this funding, I want to make sure that you're going to be able to, the community is going to reap the benefits of this shift and change in our allocation. If we have the money and we have this discretionary pot of money in the neighborhood safety department that can be used, by all means, we've been hearing the need over and over. But I'm also hearing tension between that ask. So thank you, Budget Director.
Sure. Chair Tugtai, members of the Budget Committee. Just to be clear about the conversation that I had back in May, what I provided was budget to actuals, which is a little bit different than what's obligated versus not obligated, right? So I was looking at, here's the overall budget for neighborhood safety and what they've spent. And so then after that point in the conversation, you have to go to neighborhood safety and say what's contracted and what's not contracted. I believe when we heard from some of these groups, there was an effort to look at those contracts and there were some dollars remaining. Perhaps not adequate to an expansion of work, but that's sort of beyond my purview. But the conversation that I had and what I mentioned in agenda setting was that I brought forward budget to actuals, not obligated versus unobligated.
Okay, so we don't have an exact number here is what you're saying either. So, okay. All right. I think that is all I have for questions at the moment.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Council Vice President Chugtai. I just wanted to make some comments in support of this resolution. A need for a summer safety plan, as many have uplifted, is not new. I think since 2020 and the height of pandemic, it's been multiple summers where every year it feels like, okay, it's about to be May, things are about to warm up, what are we gonna do? And the planning for it should have started in November of the previous year, even sooner, even the previous summer. And my experience, both as a council member and as someone who has worked for this city, is that we're always scrambling by the time the weather gets hot. and we should have been planning ahead. And so this conversation is not a new one, and the need is really, really there. And now we're nearly at the end of summer, hoping that we can help support these organizations do what they need to do. And I think it's really great that we bring this forward as a way for us to make a commitment again to next summer so we aren't scrambling again. The need is present in the community across our city, especially for the council members who have high amounts of law violations, people who are really struggling and need the preventative and responsive work that these groups are providing. And this weekend alone, I'm sure we all got texts and calls and emails about instances. I had a friend who was visiting from outside of the city, wasn't visiting me, but they had a stray bullet hit their car. And that is not something that was new to this city that we have heard of, and we have to look at this problem squarely and say, okay, what can we do? And so I hear the voices up here that are saying, okay, this isn't guaranteeing that money goes to one organization or not, but this is the lever that we have. And I pray that the administration hears us and sees that this is a resounding priority for this body, not just in this year, but years prior. The drum on this has been beating for a really, really long time. And I would say a thanks to our leadership in the Public Health and Safety Committee for having the presentation with community groups, because it's an amazing offering to our administration to go back and review and hear the plans and hear the ideas and really use that to develop something creative as they enter into an RFP process. And I hope this money doesn't just sit in a pot unobligated. I hope that it's used for something creative, and I hope the administration sees that there are partners in this council for consultation, for thinking, that this is like a unique opportunity for us to find a bridge to collaborate rather than sit in different silos and try to use different levers to get something done that has been clearly a need for so many in our city and people are ready to do the work for. So I'm happy to support this. I'm glad that it's before us, and it's also a good point for us to bring this conversation forward as something that's not new and a continual need, and I hope summer of 2025 does not look like this one. I hope people are ready to hit the ground running on May 1st and have their plans ready to go, and people are hired up and we see a greater presence. We have people that we can connect constituents to and see a significant difference, both in the numbers that we get around crime stats and gunshots, but also in the perception of safety on the ground.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Council Vice President. So I'm going to work with the clerks to upload an email exchange that I actually had with, my team had with Jane, who just spoke in regards to the unobligated fund conversation. So when we reached out to budgets, at that time, we were told the account code that we're referencing specifically for NSD had about $19.1 million. This is on May 6th of 2024. And that point, the department has spent or had obligated $5.3 million of that amount so far. This was in May. So that means as of now, what we do know, there's about a little over $13 million that has not been spent, and we're talking about proposing $500,000, earmarking that of potentially $13.8 million that has not been obligated or committed to anything as of now. We know, yes, NSD has the ability to increase contracts or increase spending, but we're literally talking about pennies in regards to what is being uncommitted when we're looking at $13.8 and $500,000 of that. So I am more than happy to work with the clerks to upload that so my colleagues can also have that as a reference point of how we landed with this funding source that we landed today, to hopefully provide some more context to what budget shared as well.
Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Vito.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a couple things. There has been a summer safety plan. Like, a lot of the groups reached out to me and showed me, like, in my face, their summer safety plan before this came up. Like, I really feel like we're putting some misinformation out and saying that there has been no summer safety plan. all of these groups, whether, they get additional monies or not, have been funded through the end of their grant period, which included summer. You don't get to not work in the summer and then pick back up in the fall. We all know summer is the best. I've been looking for it, but folks sent me an actual summer safety plan model that they were using. I think it was out of New Jersey or New York City or something like that, an actual literal plan with events, with patrols, with language, with its own font. It was a very extensive plan that more than 5 groups have shown me and shared with me, and have worked with Commissioner Barnett and worked with Chief O'Hara to talk about and what implementation looked like in every different neighborhood. So I really don't like that we're making the general public think that we did not have a plan. There has been a plan. Long before summer got here, folks started showing me the actual plan. I'm going to find out the name of it. I'm going to share it with my colleagues, but there is a plan. That plan was funded under current grant funds for all the groups who got Minneapolis strategic dollars for sure, those teams, and then some of the other teams who get smaller pots of money. But there was a plan. There was never a time where summer was not included. There definitely have been conversations between Commissioner Barnett and my office early on. I asked him, what is the plan? Can you show me the plan in writing? I don't want to talk through the plan. And with Director Nelson Brown, who showed me the plans that people had submitted to her for their work that they were going to start doing way back in, I want to say April. I mean, it's been going on. We really were excited that we were getting ahead of summer and not waiting until the end of the year. So I just wanted to clarify that there was definitely a summer action plan. It was extremely cohesive and detailed that groups presented and used.
Wonderful. Seeing no further discussion, I will ask the clerks to call the roll. We need a motion first. I will move this item. Can I get a second?
Second.
Clerks, please call the roll.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville is absent. Sorry. Vita.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Chowdhury.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Vice Chair Koski.
Aye.
Chair Chuktai.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
With that, that item carries, and we have now concluded all of the business to come before this committee today, and without objection, we stand adjourned.